The recent meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was expected to reinforce diplomatic and economic ties between the two nations. However, instead of a productive discussion, the meeting quickly turned into a tense confrontation. Trump openly questioned Ukraine's approach to Russia, criticized Zelensky for what he perceived as a lack of gratitude for U.S. support, and expressed doubts about the necessity of continued American military assistance. In response, Zelensky stood firm, asserting that Ukraine's sovereignty was non-negotiable and that unwavering Western backing was crucial in deterring further Russian aggression. The disagreement ultimately led to the cancellation of a planned joint press conference and the suspension of discussions regarding a proposed U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal. This breakdown in communication has cast uncertainty over future cooperation between Washington and Kyiv, with broader implications for Ukraine's war effort and its diplomatic standing. Trump's stance on Ukraine has been a subject of scrutiny for years. Unlike previous U.S. presidents who have strongly backed Ukraine against Russian aggression, Trump has consistently displayed skepticism about Kyiv's leadership. He has frequently suggested that Ukraine should be more open to negotiations with Moscow, a position that aligns closely with Russian interests. One of Trump's most controversial claims is that his personal relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin could lead to a swift resolution of the war. He has implied that his unique approach to diplomacy, which prioritizes deal-making over long-standing alliances, would be more effective in securing peace. However, critics argue that this strategy undermines Ukraine's position while granting Russia more leverage in negotiations. By casting doubt on continued U.S. military aid and portraying Ukraine as an unreliable partner, Trump's rhetoric has raised concerns in Kyiv and across European capitals about the future of Western support for Ukraine. Beyond the geopolitical and military dimensions, economic considerations play a significant role in Trump's approach to Ukraine. One of the key topics discussed during the ill-fated meeting was a proposed agreement on Ukraine's rare earth minerals, resources that are crucial for high-tech industries, including defense and renewable energy. Trump has long sought to reduce U.S. dependence on China for critical minerals, and Ukraine's rich deposits make it an attractive alternative supplier. However, the collapse of the meeting and the subsequent shelving of the minerals deal highlight deeper mistrust between the two leaders. While Trump sees economic partnerships as a means to shape foreign relations, Zelensky's unwillingness to compromise under political pressure suggests that strategic tensions will continue to hinder deeper cooperation. The fallout from the meeting has drawn strong reactions from European allies, many of whom fear that shifting U.S. priorities could weaken the Western coalition supporting Ukraine. Many of them have reaffirmed their commitment to Ukraine, emphasizing the need for continued military and economic assistance. NATO officials have also expressed concern that Trump's stance may indicate a broader shift in U.S. foreign policy, potentially reducing Washington's role in European security. If the U.S. scales back its support for Ukraine, European nations may have to take on a greater share of the financial and military burden. This scenario is particularly troubling for NATO, as it could embolden Russia to test the alliance's resolve further in Eastern Europe. Domestically, the Trump-Zelensky confrontation has deepened political divisions in the U.S. Democratic lawmakers have criticized Trump's handling of the meeting, arguing that his rhetoric weakens Ukraine's position and emboldens Putin. They contend that the U.S. must continue to support Ukraine as a matter of strategic importance, preventing Russia from further destabilizing Europe and threatening U.S. allies. On the other hand, some Republicans align with Trump's skepticism toward continued military aid. They argue that the U.S. should focus on negotiating an end to the war rather than providing indefinite support to Kyiv. This divide reflects a broader debate within the U.S. on the country's role in global conflicts. Should America remain deeply engaged in supporting its allies, or should it adopt a more transactional approach, prioritizing direct benefits over long-term strategic commitments? From Russia's perspective, the fallout from the Trump-Zelensky meeting presents a valuable opportunity. Moscow has long sought to exploit divisions within the West, and public disputes between U.S. and Ukrainian leaders play directly into this strategy. The Kremlin has consistently framed Ukraine as overly dependent on Western aid and politically unstable, and Trump's criticisms of Zelensky provide further material for Russian propaganda. If Trump continues to express doubts about military aid or signals a willingness to engage in direct negotiations with Putin, the Kremlin may see this as an opportunity to push for a settlement on its own terms. This could include demands for Ukraine to cede occupied territories, a scenario that would be seen as a major victory for Russia. Russian state media has already seized upon the discord, presenting it as evidence that Ukraine cannot fully rely on Western support. This narrative is likely to be used to justify further military or diplomatic pressure on Kyiv, as well as to reassure the Russian public that Moscow is gaining the upper hand in the conflict. The Trump-Zelensky meeting has exposed key fault lines in U.S.-Ukraine relations, raising serious questions about Washington's long-term commitment to Kyiv. Trump's transactional approach to diplomacy suggests that he is more interested in striking quick deals than maintaining traditional strategic alliances. This presents challenges not only for Ukraine, but also for the broader Western security framework. As European allies reaffirm their support for Ukraine, the coming months will be crucial in determining whether Trump's rhetoric translates into real policy shifts or remains a negotiation tactic. If U.S. military and economic assistance to Ukraine begins to waver, it could have far-reaching consequences for the war effort and for Ukraine's ability to resist Russian aggression. Meanwhile, Russia will likely continue to exploit any signs of division to advance its strategic objectives. Whether through military escalation, diplomatic maneuvers, or information warfare, the Kremlin will seek to capitalize on the uncertainty surrounding U.S. policy. The outcome of these geopolitical maneuvers will shape the future of the conflict and the stability of Europe for years to come. China has maintained a delicate balancing act regarding the Ukraine conflict, positioning itself as a neutral party while subtly aligning with Russia on key strategic issues. Beijing has avoided directly condemning Moscow's invasion and has continued to strengthen economic ties with Russia through energy deals and trade partnerships. At the same time, China has sought to portray itself as a potential mediator in the conflict, occasionally calling for diplomatic negotiations without explicitly supporting Ukraine's sovereignty claims. From Beijing's perspective, a divided West benefits China's broader geopolitical ambitions. If Trump's policies lead to reduced U.S. involvement in Ukraine, China may interpret this as a signal that Washington is also willing to shift focus away from other global commitments, including its military presence in Asia. Such a scenario could embolden China to take a more assertive stance in regions like Taiwan and the South China Sea, leveraging perceived U.S. disengagement to advance its own strategic interests.